You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. What's up guys, back with another one of these Fallout 4 patch update videos, and today I figured I would discuss the recently announced texture pack update for Fallout 4's PC version, as I made a video a couple weeks back discussing some things that Bethesda could do to improve Fallout 4 as a whole. One of the things that I suggested was to improve the game's texture quality, as some of the vanilla textures in Fallout 4 are fairly lacking to say the least. Even if you are able to play Fallout 4 on ultra settings, you're not going to see a significant bump in texture quality when compared to playing Fallout 4 on either low, medium, or high settings. And of course, enter Bethesda's recently released high-resolution texture pack. Now, the texture pack has the following requirements. You will need a 64-bit version of Windows 7 or higher, an Intel Core i7 5820K or equivalent, and a GTX 1080 with 8GB of VRAM or equivalent, and more than 8GB of system memory. You will also need 58GB of hard drive space as well, though my install size was 54.5GB. Now, compared to Fallout 4's recommended specs, these are significantly higher, as the recommended CPU and GPU for Fallout 4 Vanilla is an Intel Core i7 4790 and a GTX 780 with 3GB of VRAM. And Fallout 4's install size, according to Steam, is 30GB. So this texture pack is almost 2 times the size of Fallout 4's base game. So I figured what I would do today is compare ultra quality screenshots at 1080p and 4K on Fallout 4's previous patch, which is 1.8, to the now current patch, which is 1.9, with the high resolution textures installed. The goal being that if you don't have a PC with the recommended specs, will you notice any visual improvements? Now, while you could argue that Bethesda is trying to future-proof these textures, and I think that's a smart idea, I wanted to make this video to showcase whether most people will benefit from installing a texture pack that is twice the size of the initial game. After all, according to Steam's player statistics, or hardware statistics, 39% of the user base is gaming at 1080p, while the adoption for resolutions higher than 1080p is less than 4%. The PC specs for the following screenshots are as follows. My computer is a Windows 7 64-bit system with an Intel i5 4670K, a GTX 770 with 2GB of VRAM, and 16GB of system memory. All screenshots will be clearly labeled whether they are 1080p and 4K, and whether they are before and after this most recent patch. So, without further ado, let's discuss. So overall, my impression is that the texture pack definitely does improve Fallout 4 stock textures. However, I would say the quality on my system is hit or miss because I don't have a lot of video memory on my GPU to work with. And sometimes the textures load and they look great, while other times the textures load and they look terrible. In general, I tried to find some of the lower quality textures in the game, and it seems like Bethesda has gone back and improved upon these textures. As you watch this slideshow, you'll notice that most of the generic road signs do appear to display at a higher quality. Now, is this worth 58GB to receive this level of improvement? Possibly, but I will say you can probably find more stylized texture mods that may appeal to you more. Now, for the most part, most of the texture improvements, from what I've been able to tell, are very subtle, and you won't notice them unless you look very closely and you're comparing the before and after images. And I think a great example of this is on this suit of Exo-1 on a power armor frame. Notice how the gauntlet seems to increase in detail as I switch from the before images to the after images, and there does seem to be quite a bit more detail there. Now, is this life-changing? No, but it is definitely an improvement. Now, that said, in particular on some of my 1080p images, a lot of the clothing and armor does seem to be vastly improved. You'll notice that you can see a lot more detail on both the vault suit as well as the leather arm pieces, where you can really make the individual stitches out with the high-resolution texture pack enabled. You'll also notice that the Brotherhood insignia on Maxon's battle coat looks much clearer than it did before. You'll notice this to a certain extent at 1080p, but it really starts to show at 4K. Some of the various cars also seem to look a little bit better. Now, from some of the images that I'm showing here, they do look bad, but I would attribute that more to my graphics card than the visual quality of the textures themselves. For whatever reason, one time I would load a scene and it couldn't render the textures properly. However, the next time I rendered the same scene, the textures rendered properly and it looked pretty good. Now, the exteriors of the cars are improved, especially on some of the metal pieces, but what I did think was really impressive was this shot that I got of the interior in 4K. You'll notice that for whatever reason, it doesn't render at 1080p, but it looks really pretty good at 4K. Again, I would attribute that to my GPU as opposed to the textures themselves. That said, I did run into some occasions where the textures looked substantially worse after installing the texture pack. The most memorable situation was for the picture of this wall that I took. As you can see in the before images, a lot of the vines that cover the wall look like vines. After the high-resolution texture pack was installed, they look terrible. Furthermore, I can't tell whether there is an improvement to this wall texture either. Now, like I said, it could be a GPU issue, but I have previous comparisons where I have what looks like the same vine texture or mesh on this wall that's at the red rocket, and that seems to have rendered properly. Honestly, I'm not sure what's going on here, or if it's what was going on before, but it could be a glitch of some kind, who knows. I do take some issue with the quality of the signs that you can encounter through Diamond City. While the posters typically look pretty good, the signs for the Commonwealth weaponry and for the chems dealer are not that great. For what is a 50 gigabyte install, I would have expected these textures to look better than they do. Granted, it could just be my system, but I find this unlikely as the 1080p images don't seem to show any visible improvements. I think this may be a case where the high-resolution texture pack may have ended up making these textures look worse than they were before, which is kind of bizarre. But again, to be fair, it could be a VRAM issue on my machine, and the textures could look great with more VRAM. Okay, so now on to the final verdict. Is the new high-resolution texture pack worth it, in my humble opinion? I would say if you've got a system that meets Bethesda's recommended requirements, I would say you should go ahead and try out this texture pack. Based on what I can tell here from my own graphics card that nowhere near meets the system requirements, I do think the textures are going to be better. That said, I think you'll notice in a couple of cases that Bethesda may have ignored certain textures, particularly for those signs that are in Diamond City. Another notable instance seems to be on the bridge as you're going towards Diamond City for the first time. While I've noticed some improvements to some of the other textures, I don't notice any improvements to the railing as you can see here, regardless of whether you're at 1080p or 4K. As for the vast majority of the PC gaming community that plays Fallout 4, I'm going to say these textures are probably not worth your time. While there are visual improvements, and make no mistake of that, just keep in mind that these improvements come at an install size that is twice what Steam says is the recommended install size for Fallout 4. Plus, when you consider that the vast majority of PC gamers right now are playing at 1080p, and over 50% of those gamers have 2 gigabytes of VRAM or less, this upgrade is just not going to be worth it for most people yet. I would say if you're interested in this texture pack, wait until you've got more VRAM and you've got a much higher end GPU. You also have to consider that with this texture pack installed, you are tripling Fallout 4's initial install size from 30 gigabytes to more than 90 gigabytes. And if you have a 1 terabyte hard drive, that's almost 10% of your entire hard drive space. Now, I know I have been negative in this video, but I do want to stress that there are improvements to the previous textures. It's going to be up to you as to whether you want to triple your install size just to achieve that. What I'm going to say, and this will just be my theory or my shtick on this entire thing, is that I really see this being more valuable to people in a couple of years. You figure in the next couple of years, people may have like a standard hard drive size of like 5 terabytes, and then maybe they've got much higher VRAM on their graphics card, much higher system memory. Maybe people will go finally from like 8 gigs to 16 gigs of system memory. What I'm getting at here is I see this being a little bit more useful further into the future than it is right now. And again, what I will say, there are definite improvements with this texture pack. It's just that I don't think a lot of people are going to use this, and really right now, it's not practical. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and let me know what you think of this video. I haven't made one of these in a long time. Also, I am going to be trying some new things over the next couple of days, so be aware of that. But again guys, like this video if you liked it, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.